So The Legend of Vox Machina came out today, and I will be blind reviewing it. I have never seen Campaign 1 of Critical Role, I barely know who plays what, I know nothing about the plot, absolutely going into this blind, don't know anything about the setting, and I will be blind reviewing it and making predictions, and they might be right, they might be wrong, who knows. But I'll be going into this entirely blind, and this is my review / breakdown of episode 1. So overall, I liked it. I thought it was very fun. I thought the characters were cool. I thought it looked pretty good. Wasn't the best thing I've ever seen. Wasn't the best animated thing I've ever seen. But it probably was the best Dungeons and Dragons related thing I've ever seen. Which is pretty good. Like, you know, better than the D&D movies, for example. I would also say that compared to Harmon Quest, the only vaguely comparable show, I would say that I like this a lot more, but the other one was more, you know, D&D feeling-ish because it was real and animated, compared to this, which is kind of just like a show based on what I assume happens in the episodes. So a thing I noticed straight away is that they don't mention Critical Role in the title, and they don't mention Dungeons and Dragons anywhere. I suspect this is probably because of legal issues, so they probably won't say anyone's classes or the names of any spells or attacks or things to avoid being in a, you know, legal war with Wizards of the Coast. That's what I think is happening. I don't know if that's true. But they didn't mention anyone's class or any abilities by name. So the show started off with a typical animation intro, but it is really funny, and I didn't know that that wasn't Vox Machina up on the hill when he was like, oh, and these heroes, and then they all just got slaughtered, so that was very surprising to me. Viewers of Critical Role would have seen it coming, but I was shook, and I thought it was very funny, and I liked it a lot. So that was a really good start. The animation style, I feel, is very comparable to like Avatar or Korra. It's like an American animation studio, kind of like the DC animated universe as well. Very typical 2D animation for most of it, with 3D elements involved, like the ship and the castle doors and stuff. I thought the ship looked pretty bad, but I thought the dragon looked awesome, and the dragon is 3D. I don't know anything about animation, but those are just little things that I noticed. So then we meet Vox Machina, and we meet them in a bar, and they get in a bar fight, and I think it's a really good way of showing everyone's characterization, as well as their abilities in combat. It showed little teasers of some characters, and overall just what their general vibes is very well, including the bard, Scanlan, not being there. I thought that was all really good, and I thought we got to know the characters very well, very quickly. After they all got kicked out of the bar, and when there's like the call to adventure moment where they get the flyer and stuff, I believe, what's her name? The druid Caliph? Caliph makes a really great quote with saying, like, why are we even doing this together? Or why are we together or something? And that is a question that every D&D party kind of goes through in early days, when they're not fully friends yet, so they don't actually have a reason to be together. It's like, why with you, you know? So I thought it was good that they mentioned that. I don't actually think they gave the best justification. It's just like, oh, 'cause mission. But, you know, I thought that was a good question to bring up, because I think that question comes up a lot in D&D. I do feel like Scanlan was a lot, because he's very charismatic, and he was a bit of a scene stealer, and, you know, very goofy, makes songs, like, very big personality. So I feel like for, like, a chunk, like a quarter of the episode, it was just, like, Scanlan and friends, but then it went back to being normal, which I thought was kind of weird, but I really like Scanlan, so it's okay. So once we get into the castle and meet the Council of Emon, is that the name of the town? That's very close to my name. Then we get that awesome song by Scanlan, and that is so much fun. A little intro to everyone really solidified what classes they all are in my head, because I hadn't really seen Vax fight. Like, he could have been a fighter. I don't know if if Percy with the gun is an artillerist or a fighter with, like, gun shooter fighter. So I don't know. Probably a gun shooter fighter, because that's a Matt Mercer class, so I'm gonna bet that that's what that is. Then in there, Vex had that good tease of Uriel making her feel uneasy or have a headache or a ping that something related to dragons is happening here. I thought that was a very good setup for him being the big bad, or the big bad of this arc at least, because it's not going to be a dragon who seemed pretty mindless in that fight, you know, like it didn't say anything, it didn't seem intelligent, like pulling the strings, where Uriel could have been. So as was pretty much confirmed in the episode, Uriel clearly has something to do with this dragon, but I don't think I've been given enough information yet to know his motivations or make any real theories about this. After watching episode 2 and 3, I bet I'll have something to go off, but just off this, I don't know why he did it, but he probably has a reasonable reason. So then the party get accepted because the king likes the bear. Great reasoning, good stuff. And then they go to that small town and Vax gives that boy a coin. That's the main important thing that happens here. But this is actually something that every DM should incorporate into their campaigns in session 1 or 2. is getting your party together, going to a town, making them have a connection and really like an NPC. You can do this by making them elderly, very sweet, kind of kooky in an endearing way, or a child, and then have them go off, come back, and that NPC be dead vaguely because of the actions of the party. This will instantly make your whole party super invested in the story, and it's just a really good tip that Brennan talks about on Adventuring Academy. It's just, you really should do it. It's very good for getting new players invested. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. They're in this town, they get the information that the kids saw wings, so then they go to the spot and they find a blue dragon. Very dark blue, but blue because lightning. So this was really cool. It really made dragons scary in a way that I appreciated. Like, they just destroyed whatever that plain area was. They made a whole like rock avalanche on them. Really good stuff. I really like that our party just flat out lost to start the campaign, because that raises the stakes in a good way, and it also gives perspective to their power levels and the power levels of a dragon. Because they beat the head mercenary dude that they were going to call, the kings were going to call, and then these guys just got destroyed by a dragon. So we know dragons are a big deal. I mean, we already knew that, but now it's like confirmed in canon. Then Pike heals up Grog using her last spell slot, then she goes to the town and she can't heal the child, and then the child dies, and then they all feel bad for different reasons, letting this happen, not healing them, and then they want revenge and they want to kill this dragon. So, it clearly sets up their mission, their goal, they know exactly what they're going to do. It really sets us up for episodes 2, 3, 4, however many it is until they defeat this dragon. So that's pretty much where episode 1 ends, with the dragon being the immediate threat and maybe Uriel being the big bad would be my predictions now, but I don't really have enough to go off to make a big fancy prediction. Again, I'll be watching episodes 2 and 3 very soon, probably the second I stop recording this because I really want to watch them. So these are my overall thoughts on the episodes that didn't really fit into the breakdown. So basically, I love the cast. I think the voice acting is incredible. I think that they have really, really good chemistry, which I bet is why Critical Role is so successful. Just the chemistry in the cast is incredible. And they're all amazing voice actors, like entirely flawless. So the world building was fairly typical, but that didn't really bother me because I don't mind some cookie cutter fantasy world building if the characters are really good, which it looks like that's what this is gonna be. I don't know yet how much NPCs and other characters are gonna have a part in the story, because in D&D you don't really see scenes of just the villains doing things, because it's wherever the party is. You don't see random scenes of the DM just narrating what a villain is doing like you do in a movie. So I don't know how they're going to handle this. I think because it's a TV show or movie, they're probably going to just show the villains doing their things, which is very exciting because I think that's better narratively than the other way, where we just don't see them unless they're in front of the party. I think that all of the characters were fairly archetypal, and I think that that's actually a good thing. Especially if they can't say the classes directly, it's good to have a brooding rogue and a nature-loving druid and all of that. You know, the bard, very typical. The barbarian, very typical. But typical isn't a bad thing. It's typical because it frequently works. And in this case, I believe it works. So that's just a thing I noticed, but they don't lose any points for that. I really liked how they used spells and abilities in ways that didn't explicitly say them, you know, anime style, where they just say the name of the attack, especially because that's probably copyrighted. So they just had a little Shield of Faith, and they had Entangle, and they had Bigby's Hand in Scanlan's Song, and I think maybe even Hunter's Mark on the dragon when Vex was shooting it. I think I noticed that. I don't know if that's what that was though. But I think that is really good use of magical abilities without, like I said before, using copyright and explicitly saying what they are. And the final thing that I noticed that I really liked was that they mentioned some very typical D&D things in a funny way in character, such as Percy not wanting to travel with the goody two-shoes cleric because she doesn't want him to kill people and stuff. And the why we even together, the bard sleeping with everyone, them always getting in bar fights. That's typical D&D stuff that happens at almost every table, and they just brought that to the screen in a really nice way. So I really like that attention to detail. So overall, I would rate it 7.5 out of 10. I really like the characters, I really like the dynamic, the voice acting's incredible. The animation style is a bit lacking if you compare it to the likes of Korra or Arcane or some anime series like Attack on Titan, but you know, it's fine, it looks good enough. And I'm very excited to see where it goes. It really feels like D&D, and you really get a fun vibe from the show. That is what is most important here. You really just have fun with them, and I really, really enjoyed it. So yeah, I will be making more predictions after episode 2 and 3, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!